Alright, welcome back to the show today. We are talking about ring culture. What is ring culture? Well, I define it as the rhetoric around the league that a guy is only worth however many rings he has, or he's only worth something if he has a ring. However many rings you had defines how good you were at the game of basketball, not necessarily your legacy, because some guys have really cool legacies because they didn't win a ring. It gives some level of romantic mystique to their story. So Damian Lillard recently brought up on JJ Redick's podcast the idea of ring culture, something that he is personally very tired of hearing about throughout his career. But I think it's part of a larger, more toxic issue of the game of basketball in the NBA, which I'm going to address later. So when did the idea of ring chasing come to be? Was Scottie Pippen ring chasing when he joined what he thought was the first super team with Hakeem Olajuwon and Charles Barkley on the Houston Rockets in 1999? Yes, I think he was chasing one more to have one more than his former teammate turned rival, Michael Jordan. Of course, things didn't work out for Scottie in Houston because Charles Barkley was not chasing that ring hard enough. I don't believe this was actually the inception of ring chasing because Scottie already had 6 rings, and after the season he just forced a trade to Portland to go to a team full of young, passionate guys that he could mentor. Not necessarily the move of a desperate ring chaser. Instead, I think it began with the 03-04 Los Angeles Lakers, when future Hall of Famers Gary Payton and Karl Malone signed for way below their market value. They wanted to play with Shaq and Kobe, who had won 3 championships in a row only a year before, because they were getting older and they wanted to assure they would have at least one ring on their finger when they retired. If you watch my channel, you know this is not only the definition of a super team, but the recipe for a successful super team. Even Tayshaun Prince of the Detroit Pistons, the team that beat them in the finals, said when the signing happened, we're pretty much handing them the title right now. Malone and Payton signed the biannual and mid-level exception. These are contracts that are usually saved for a 6th or 7th guy, not a starter and definitely not a star. These guys wanted rings. Luckily, Payton was able to get one in 2006 with the Miami Heat, and unfortunately, Karl Malone never got his championship ring. I don't know if Karl Malone's legacy is shadowed by his lack of a ring, or it's shadowed by something else. Even Shaq admits he was ring chasing when he went to Boston. He signed a 2-year deal, but he retired before the end of that second deal.
I was ring chasing, I really was, but I wanted to help Paul because Paul was one of my favorite players. So when I tore my Achilles and Danny said, "Hey man, I want you to come back," I was like, Father said, "You always got to look a man or a woman in the face and be honest." And I felt like I was robbing him.
I really admire Shaq, and I like what he said about having to look someone in the eye and be honest with them. Shaq knew the Celtics would have better odds if they signed a different center and went on with them, because he knew he was just going to be sitting on that bench waiting for that 5th ring. He was definitely trying to tie Kobe. It was really important to him. Personally, I really love this because I think Shaq had something to prove, not to the media, but to Kobe. These were 2 men chasing each other's approval their entire careers, and at the end, they found each other's respect. So rings are important. Every player wants to know what it's like to win a championship and have that experience. Typically, ring chasing happens at the end of someone's career when they've made a lot of money and they're willing to sacrifice. But sometimes it comes early, like in the case with LeBron James. LeBron had already won the MVP and been to the finals when he joined the Miami Heat in 2010. Clearly, LeBron had plenty of time in his career to get a championship. But he wasn't chasing 1 ring, he was chasing
not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
LeBron was already on his way to becoming one of the all-time greats. He wanted to prove he was better than Michael Jordan. Prove to Michael, prove to the media, prove to old head NBA fans, I don't know. But why would he leave the Heat? Why wouldn't he stay with a good team that had been to the finals 4 years in a row and had won 2 of them? Sure, he'd have to keep taking pay cuts, but he already makes a ton of money in endorsements, so who cares? Like it or not, we are all inclined to believe that how much money we make dictates how much value we have as a professional, and sometimes as a person. So when there are 20 players in the league getting paid more than you and you believe you're the best player in the league, that's not going to sit real well with you. Also, that team was referred to as Miami's Big 3. It really wasn't referred to as LeBron's Heat. I think it occurred to LeBron that the context in which you win the championship is just as important as the championship itself. That's when he saw the opportunity to go back to Cleveland and play on a team that was better than any team he'd played in Cleveland with before. If he could win a championship there, it would have so much more meaning to him and maybe the public. To him for sure, that's why he said this.
Everyone saw me crying like that was all for 52 years, everything in sports was going on in Cleveland. And then after I stopped, I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player of all time.
And then when he won in 2020 with the Lakers, he said this.
We just want our respect. Rob wants his respect. Coach Vogel wants his respect. Our organization wants their respect. Laker Nation wants their respect. And I want my damn respect too.
I think this is very interesting, and I think it's a great example of the human condition. If you spend your life chasing the approval of others, you will always be unfulfilled, because the approval of others has everything to do with that person, probably how they feel about themselves, and not you. Ultimately, it's outside of your control. I believe that Michael Jordan realized this. This is him when he's asked if he's the greatest player of all time.
I won 6 championships. Bill Russell won 11. Does that make Bill Russell better than me and make me better than him? No, because we play at different eras. So when you try to equate who's the greatest of all time, it's an unfair parallel. It's an unfair choice.
He neither says yes, nor does he say no. He just says there's no way of him knowing that, which is true. MJ believes he's the best player of his generation, and to argue that would only give his doubters credibility. Another Michael Jordan video I think about all the time is this video where he's talking about how dumb it is to ask who is the greatest of all time.
Who's the greatest player of all time? Dumb question. It should be, who's the greatest team of all time? You know, there are so many teams to choose from. The 91 Chicago Bulls, sorry Showtime. The 92 Bulls, back-to-back. 93 Bulls, first three-peat. 97 Bulls, even with the flu. 98 Bulls, no push-off. And my favorite, the 96 Chicago Bulls. 72 wins. Tough to beat that.
Instead, he flips it around and asks who's the greatest team of all time. Granted, every team is his team, but nonetheless, who is the greatest team of all time? Because he knows basketball is a team sport, and the only achievements that really matter are those done by the team. I think it'd be really interesting to know what Michael Jordan thinks of Miami's Big Three or the KD-era Golden State Warriors. Do these metaphorically steroided out Frankenstein teams deserve as much appreciation as Jordan's Bulls? I think he would. Good basketball is good basketball. Sure, the narrative's a little bit boring, but hey, it's a fun game to watch. Sure, I believe that super teams are toxic. I believe that ring chasing is toxic. But the most toxic aspect of the NBA right now is the MVP race. So let's take the Supermax contract eligibility out of it. Because likely if you are in the conversation for the MVP, you are going to be all NBA. You're going to be eligible for that Supermax, so who cares? Let's move on. To desire the MVP, I believe, is truly bad for a player's mental health. The desire to win a championship is admirable because it's within that player's control. But the MVP is based on the personal perceptions of a bunch of media members and whatever biases they have going on. To find self-worth in that award is a fool's errand. Even a guy like Giannis, who I always thought was kind of apathetic when it came to the MVP award, did this year. He was trying to secure a triple-double that was ultimately redacted. Giannis didn't pretend to miss a shot and go up for a rebound to be cheeky. He actually did it, and they put it on the Jumbotron. Call it a joke, call it what you will. He stat padded. His stats are on his mind, and I believe he wants a third MVP. Maybe a little, maybe a lot, but he wants it. Now, I don't find this really concerning, but it did rub me the wrong way. So going back to ring culture and Dame's point, I think he's trying to say, I like basketball. I'm going to keep playing basketball, and I'm not going to let anyone dictate what's important to me in my career. He has his own life. He has his own code that he lives by. But the constant rhetoric of him chasing a ring and not having a ring is starting to wear him down. In closing, let's hear about Charles Barkley and how he feels about his career in the NBA.
You know, I got my shot, and that's all you can ask for. But like this notion that when some guys say, "Well, you didn't win the championship," I'm like, yeah, it's not. It's not an individual thing. Yeah. But man, I gave it all I had. I mean, I did the best that I could, and I sleep good at night about what I accomplished in sports.
So the lesson I learned when doing my research is set goals on things that are within your control. Do right by the people that are around you and you've put in your life. And don't let the way other people feel about you affect the way you feel about yourself. Thank you for listening to me project my personal feelings onto the NBA. I really appreciate that. Be good to your mothers, be good to your motherfucking dads too.